Notes on the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 12, Knowledge, Meditation, and Renunciation. The word faith, as used in this chapter, has a far deeper meaning than is usually given it. To have faith is the holding of conviction of the truth of that upon which one's faith is fixed. There are many, quote, faiths, end quote, in the world, some adopted because of ignorance, credulity, and superstition, and others because they appeal to the desires of their adherents, others again because of the partial truths that they hold. That which is lacking in all of these is knowledge, for a conviction held in ignorance only perpetrates ignorance and the results of ignorance. Also, a conviction that's held from desire only perpetrates desires and their results. A conviction held because of partial truths perceives, indicates a little knowledge, but not enough to distinguish the error that is always mixed within the partial truths. This faith which is spoken of by Krishna is that which is founded on self-knowledge, or knowledge of the self as being all and in all, a reliance upon that Supreme Self, and an identification of oneself with it, presents an unchanging and unchangeable basis from which the truth in regard to man and all nature may be rightly perceived. Quote, true faith, end quote, can only exist when founded upon right knowledge. In the reply of Krishna, which closes the 11th chapter, these words are found, quote, I am to be approached and seen and known in truth by means of that devotion which has me alone as the object. Arjuna follows in the 12th chapter with this question, quote, among those of thy devotees who always thus worship thee, which take the better way? Those who worship the indivisible and the unmanifested, or those who serve thee as thou art now? Krishna's reply embodies the following. For those whose hearts are fixed on the unmanifested, the labor is greater, because the path which is not manifest is with difficulty attained by corporeal beings. A footnote explains that, quote, the difficulty here stated is caused by the personality, which causes us to see the Supreme as different and separate from ourselves, end quote. A tendency of human beings is to think and to act as persons in their relations with other human beings and with manifested nature in general. And although they may ardently desire to act, quote, for and as the self, end quote, they find themselves constantly falling under the sway of the purely personal feeling of separateness. The words, quote, or those who serve thee as thou now art, end quote, refer to the form in which Krishna was best known to Arjuna. That this was a human form is indicated in the previous chapter, where Arjuna says the following, quote, having been ignorant of thy majesty, I took thee for a friend, and have called thee, quote, O Krishna, O son of Yadu, O friend, end quote, and blinded my affection and presumption. I have at times treated thee without respect, in sport and recreation, in thy chair and at thy meals, in private and in public. All this, I beseech thee, O inconceivable being, please forgive, end quote. In this sentence, Arjuna recognizes Krishna as a divine incarnation, a being who had reached perfection and who had voluntarily incarnated in order to help those still struggling in this, quote, ocean of incarnations and death, end quote. Such divine incarnations have not been infrequent, both before and since the time of Krishna. It is shown by a study of the world's greatest religions. The rationale and meaning of such incarnations is clearly shown in the Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky. The course of every Arjuna and each one of us is just that. It is the first a recognition that true knowledge must exist, and an ardent desire to obtain that true knowledge. Then comes a search for the source of that knowledge. In that search lies the danger for the seeker, for he finds many teachers to knowledge, while as yet he has no means of determining the true from the false. He will accept ignorantly that teacher or teachings which his ideas and desires serve. Readers note, the same message is replicated in the Christian Bible in 2 Timothy. Their ears have been tickled by the cunning craftiness of the false teacher, and they are drawn away after their own lusts. End of reader's note. This is unfortunately the course of most seekers, but there are to be found others who examine carefully the fundamental basis of the teachings offered, and who will only accept those whose foundational propositions can be so universally applied that their truth becomes self-evident. A resume of the previous chapters will show that Krishna pointed out to Arjuna the various forms of belief and of practice, or devotion, followed by men, and that these, though partial and erroneous, would finally lead to the one truth if the seeker was sincere and devoted in his search for the real truth. At the same time, the one reality, or the one truth, was shown to be accessible to all men, and to be the highest, most direct, and the noblest path, leading to understanding, wisdom, and true happiness. Quote, "But if thou shouldest be unable at once to steadfastly fix thy heart and thy mind on me, then, quote, strive then, O Dhananjaya, to find me being constant in devotion." End quote. Steadfastness is gained by a constant endeavor to become steadfast. Quote, "If after constant practice thou art still unable, follow me by actions performed for me, for by doing works for me thou shalt attain perfection." End quote. The works referred to are special ones, designed and performed for the sake of the Supreme, all tending toward an elimination of the, quote, personal idea, end quote, of separateness. Quote, "But if thou art unequal even to this, then, being self-restrained, place all thy works, all thy failures and successes alike on me, abandoning in me the fruit of every action. For knowledge is better than constant practice, meditation is superior to knowledge, and renunciation of the fruit of action of meditation. Final emancipation immediately results from such a renunciation. It has been said that the source of all beings is one, that the goal is one, but the path varies with each pilgrim. Hence each pilgrim is at the point of evolution or development where one or the other steps presented is within reach. Each of these steps is shown to be leading in the direction of the goal, but the aspirant must see them as only steps, the condition of his success being that he must ever keep the goal, union with the higher self, in view. Quote, "Being self-restrained," end quote, means holding the personal self in abeyance. Quote, "Place all thy works, failures, and successes alike on me, abandoning in me the fruit of every action." End quote. It hardly needs an explanation, for the same instruction has been given so often in previous chapters of the Gita, such as, quote, "Freedom comes from a renunciation of self-interest in the fruit of one's actions." End quote. Self-interest is always a matter of thinking. We can have no attachment for anything that we do not think about, nor can we have a dislike for anything that we do not think about. So, if we find confronting us things right to be done, then we should do them, regardless of whether they promise success or promise failure to ourselves. Krishna says that the final emancipation immediately results from such renunciation, thus placing complete renunciation as the attainment of the goal. So we see that renunciation is superior to meditation, because by that meditation upon the end in view is when renunciation comes. But meditation is superior to knowledge, because right knowledge produces right meditation. And then knowledge is better than constant practice, because practice begets the knowledge. The remainder of the chapter should be read in connection with these notes, for there Krishna speaks of the qualities possessed by those who follow the path he shows. The chapter ends with these final words, quote, "But those who seek this sacred ambrosia, the religion of immortality, even as I have explained it, full of faith, intent on me above all others, and united to devotion, are my most beloved." End of chapter 12. Notes on the Bhagavad Gita by William Q. Judge. Love yourselves and love each other unconditionally.